Benjamin's breath comes out ragged, clouds of vapor dissolving quickly into the oppressive dusk. His knuckles whiten around the rusty handlebars as he skids to a halt, the bike trembling beneath him. Sweat trickles cold down his spine, the eerie calm of the abandoned road stretching ahead into the shadows. He can still see it, carved deeply into the worn paint of the bike frame, words that now echo like whispers in his ears. If you took this path, turn back. His pulse races with a sudden rush of inexplicable dread. Something moves subtly in the gloom, shifting quietly behind the old trees lining the road. Benjamin's heartbeat thunders painfully loud, drowning out rational thought as he realizes it may already be too late to turn back. You're in Tales of the Watcher, where fates are glimpsed, not told, and every step you take is seen by eyes you'll never meet. The air hums with secrets, daring you to listen. Stick around, subscribe for the journey, and in today's story, Benjamin, 15 and lean from countless afternoons, spent roaming the cracked streets of his neighborhood, stood in the cluttered garage that served as both workshop and rental shop. Bicycles of all conditions leaned against walls that smelled of oil and rust. He chose the one at the back, faded red paint, slightly crooked handlebars. $10, said Mr. Howard, his voice flat and uninterested. Benjamin paid, eager for freedom. Only as he pedaled away did he notice the scratched message on the frame. If you took this path, turn back. He laughed it off at first, dismissing it as a meaningless prank. But something in the air felt different, an unsettling heaviness clinging to the afternoon breeze, whispering secrets he couldn't yet decipher. Benjamin felt the bicycle strangely resisting beneath him, heavier than expected. He shrugged it off as imagination, riding with determination through familiar roads that now seemed oddly distant and unfamiliar. Despite the sunlight overhead, shadows played unsettling games on the pavement ahead, shifting in shapes that seemed to hint at hidden warnings. The breeze grew chillier with each pedal stroke, whispering quietly around him, words lost in the rustle of dry leaves scattering along the roadside. The sun dipped lower, bathing the familiar streets in burnt amber. Benjamin pedaled faster, feeling strangely compelled to leave familiar territory behind. Each streetlight flickered faintly as he passed, casting erratic shadows across the sidewalk. Turning onto Mill Road, an old street he rarely visited, Benjamin shivered as a sudden chill rippled through him. He remembered the carved warning and paused briefly, a whisper of doubt brushing against his intuition. But the road ahead was quiet, temptingly empty. He pushed onward, tires humming softly, ignoring the sudden silence as if the world held its breath, waiting for him to realize the gravity of his choice. The road seemed increasingly isolated, buildings sparse and decayed, their windows darkly vacant. Benjamin noticed the atmosphere had shifted subtly, becoming oppressive. His pulse quickened slightly as the daylight dimmed faster than he expected. Yet his curiosity pushed him forward, ignoring the subtle signs warning him to reconsider. The distant murmur of evening traffic faded completely, leaving him enveloped in an unsettling quiet that tightened his chest with unease. Darkness crept closer as Benjamin rode deeper into unfamiliar streets. The houses here felt different, empty, dark windows like hollow eyes watching silently. The air thickened, growing colder with each block. An inexplicable shiver traced his spine, intensified by an eerie whispering that floated softly behind him, barely audible but undeniably there. Glancing nervously over his shoulder, he saw only empty pavement and the distant streetlights now flickering intermittently, as if struggling to remain lit. His heartbeat quickened, intuition clawing at his chest. He pedaled harder, convincing himself it was imagination, unaware that the carved warning on the bike frame now seemed darker, more pronounced, as though freshly etched into the metal. Every shadow now seemed to stretch unnaturally, reaching out toward him like elongated fingers. The whispers became clearer, though still unintelligible, each syllable like icy breaths against his neck. Benjamin's anxiety grew, matched by his desperation to return home. He turned corners randomly, increasingly disoriented, the whispers trailing behind persistently. Fear began to overtake his initial dismissal, realization dawning that perhaps the warning had been no idle prank. Benjamin slowed his pace near an old abandoned gas station at the corner. The pumps stood skeletal, rust flaking off in layers. The eerie quiet was broken only by the distant hum of unseen electricity. Leaning the bike briefly against a pump, he caught his breath, eyes drifting to a faded poster on the cracked glass window. "If you took this path." The rest was torn away, leaving his pulse hammering. He stepped back hastily, almost stumbling over something metallic, a bike chain rusted and twisted, lying exactly where he'd placed his foot. A sudden noise snapped his attention around, revealing a group of older boys emerging from the shadows behind the building. Their eyes glinted sharply in the dying daylight, expressions hardened with suspicion and hostility. One of them stepped forward, his voice smooth yet menacing, as he outlined a quick, illicit plan involving breaking into a nearby abandoned store. He invited Benjamin casually yet firmly, the offer clear: join them or face potential trouble for refusal. Benjamin's heart thudded loudly, recalling vividly the cryptic warning carved into the bike frame. He hesitated only briefly, recognizing this crossroads as the path warned against. With determined resolve, he shook his head firmly, voice steady despite his fear. "No, I'm not getting involved." The group exchanged dark glances, surprise and anger flickering briefly across their faces before reluctantly melting back into the shadows. Benjamin quickly mounted his bike, relief flooding through him, knowing instinctively he had narrowly avoided a far darker path. Benjamin's heart still hammered wildly as he pedaled away from the abandoned gas station, leaving the intimidating boys and their dark proposition behind. His breath came rapidly, a mix of adrenaline and profound relief flooding his system. Despite escaping immediate danger, his pulse refused to slow. The warning etched into the bike frame echoed clearly in his thoughts, no longer seeming just a random prank, but a guiding voice, steering him clear from potentially irreversible mistakes. He pedaled harder, determined to distance himself further from trouble, yet the unfamiliar streets only deepened his disorientation. Each intersection appeared increasingly alien, street signs blurry under dimming twilight, directions shifting with disconcerting subtlety. Doubt crept insidiously back into his consciousness. Had he chosen correctly? Or was the bicycle leading him toward an even stranger path? As darkness settled heavily around him, Benjamin's intuition sharpened. He felt trapped in a maze of ambiguity, his surroundings increasingly oppressive. Despite the clear refusal of wrongdoing earlier, an inexplicable dread lingered, whispering softly of consequences yet unseen, subtly reminding him that some warnings were given not merely to avoid immediate danger, but to prepare for deeper hidden truths ahead. Benjamin soon found himself on a stretch of road utterly foreign and enveloped by nightfall's dark embrace. Sparse streetlights emitted feeble pools of light, barely illuminating cracked pavement ahead. The bike beneath him seemed reluctant now, as if sensing his growing anxiety, each pedal rotation more laborious. He stopped, breathing shallowly, surrounded by a silence profound enough to amplify even his faintest breath. Scanning his surroundings nervously, he recognized none of the landmarks. His hands trembled slightly on the handlebars as he tried again to recall the route he'd taken. Each failed attempt heightening his sense of isolation. A noise startled him, a distant sound of hurried footsteps. Perhaps someone following, or perhaps just paranoia tightening its grip. Heart racing anew, Benjamin quickly moved on, feeling compelled forward by both dread and curiosity. The carved warning glowed faintly under moonlight, seeming now less threatening, almost comforting, a constant reminder of the danger he'd narrowly avoided earlier. Yet the ambiguity remained. He understood clearly now that some paths, once chosen, could not easily be reversed. Eventually, Benjamin reached an intersection where the streetlights converged in a pale, eerie glow. He paused, unsure, the oppressive silence making even minor decisions feel momentous. Looking down at the worn bike, the carved warning appeared, deeply vivid under the soft artificial light, its words etched sharply in his memory. "If you took this path, turn back." He stood quietly, breathing deeply, weighing his options. One road led deeper into unfamiliar darkness, promising uncertainty. Another path angled back toward dimly familiar landmarks. The choice, though seemingly simple, carried the weight of unseen significance. He glanced again at the bicycle, recognizing fully now the deeper meaning behind the cryptic message. It had saved him once, but it could not choose forever on his behalf. With quiet resolve, Benjamin carefully set the bicycle aside at the intersection, acknowledging silently that warnings could guide, but decisions belonged ultimately to him. With firm, deliberate steps, he turned toward the more familiar path, leaving the mysterious bicycle behind, accepting fully the weight of his own choices and their potential consequences. Some warnings don't reveal dangers. They merely illuminate your freedom to choose differently.